Welcome to TVP World Talks. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. The launch of the Axiom 4 mission, which will send Polish astronaut Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski to the International Space Station, has been postponed for the third time, now expected no earlier than Wednesday due to high winds. This will be the second time a Polish astronaut has traveled to space, following General Mirosław Hermaszewski in 1978. And now we are joined by Piotr Witek, senior specialist and physicist at the Copernicus Science Centre, to discuss the mission's technical details and objectives. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning.
So this is the third time the AX4 mission has been delayed due to high winds. Can you explain to us why the weather, especially wind, plays such a big role in launching astronauts safely into space?
Before we launch the astronauts into space, they have to cross the atmosphere. And the conditions of the atmosphere are a factor of risk in every launch. The rocket, Falcon 9, seems to be quite heavy, measuring over 60 meters in height, but still it is vulnerable to the high winds, and also it can cover with ice if the conditions are not favorable. Also, there is still a possibility that during the launch something goes wrong, so that the launch has to be not postponed but terminated in flight. It is possible, but the Crew Dragon capsule has to separate from the rocket and safely fall into the ocean. And because of that, it's also important that the weather is good over the Atlantic Ocean, where the capsule would fall in that event.
Understood. Could you walk us, please, through the flight timeline from launching to the docking, especially in light of these shifting launch dates?
This shift doesn't really change much in terms of what will happen after the launch. Within the first minute, the rocket will accelerate and pass through the so-called max Q, the moment where the aerodynamic drag is the highest. So it is the most dangerous part of the flight to the space station. Then, in 12 minutes after the start, the rocket will send the capsule into the first orbit. It is really rapid. In the first 8 minutes, the first stage of the rocket spends its fuel and separates from the second stage, and then the second stage accelerates the capsule, the Crew Dragon spacecraft, to stay in the orbit, because the International Space Station is not far above the surface of the Earth, but it is orbiting with a high velocity, which makes it stay in the orbit and not fall back into the Earth. And therefore, the capsule has to reach the same, not only altitude, but also velocity, which is about 10 times higher than the muzzle velocity of AK-47 machine gun. So it's really, really fast.
This mission is historic because it includes Polish astronaut. What will his role be on the board of International Space Station, and how important is it for Poland's space program?
Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski is a scientist, and his work in the International Space Station is also doing science and testing technology in space. He has 13 scheduled experiments to do within the 2 weeks of his stay on the International Space Station. Among them, there are experiments concerning artificial intelligence, processing images. There are medical experiments to which he will use his own body, because he will be monitored, and many parameters of his body and gut microbiota will be checked to see the difference between the beginning and the end of the mission. Staying in space changes the organism, changes the body in many ways due to weightlessness and also due to high radiation above the protective layer of the atmosphere. He will test technologies such as some wearable measuring devices that monitor life functions, also sound environment of the station and radiation environment. All these measurements will further our knowledge of space, of the conditions that are experienced by the astronauts, but also they are important for our industry, for our growing space industry. The Polish space industry is not small. It is already over 400 companies employing over 15,000 people here in Poland. And this industry will have their first flight-tested experiments, flight-tested devices after the mission.
So the crew underwent, I understand, 1,000 hours of training. What kind of training? Is it more about science, physical fitness, mental learning to handle emergencies in space?
Well, everything, because astronauts have to be really fit for this mission and have to know what to do in any event of the emergency. Their days are filled with work, and this work is scheduled to the minute because of limited time on the International Space Station. They sure have some time to watch the Earth and call their family through the internet, but still they are there to work and to further science. So they have to be familiar with all the equipment they work with, starting from the Dragon spacecraft and to the equipment of the International Space Station, especially Columbus Laboratory, where Sławosz Uznański-Wiśniewski will be working.
So any delay of the launch must be a stressful experience for any astronaut. So they also go to a quarantine prior to the launch. Can you walk us through what happens on the launch day?
The astronauts start their day they started their experience by going to the rocket, riding with Tesla cars to the launch pad. More than 2 hours before the start. The rocket is already in place. It is waiting for them. All electronic devices are configured and tested many times before. But still there is no fuel in the rocket, mostly for safety reasons. And after the crew board the Dragon spacecraft, they will wait for fuel for fuel being pumped into the rocket, fuel and also oxidant, because there are two parts to that rocket launch. The fuel is pumped into the rocket only 45 minutes before the launch, mostly due to safety reasons. And before that, the rocket, the Dragon spacecraft, has to arm its escape mechanism in case anything goes wrong. Then they will wait for the signal to launch the rocket, and 3 seconds before the moment of launch, the Merlin engines will ignite, and then the rocket will start rising into the sky.
All right. There are many space missions happening today, but what makes this one so outstanding, and why is this one led by a private company like Axiom can be, an important step forward?
Well, there's been a shift to more cooperation between giant government agencies and private sector in the recent decades. And Axiom Space is one of the companies that is part of that movement. Also SpaceX, which is a provider of the rockets and the Dragon spacecraft, is a private company, not a government agency. So many things have changed. Still, there is science to do, and in the future, Axiom Space is willing to build its own small space station for the people to launch to some kind of orbital hotel. All the experience they will gather helping further science in the International Space Station will be crucial for that endeavor.
Thank you so much. So the countdown has already started. We'll be watching very closely the launch of Dragon spacecraft Axiom 4. Thank you so much, Piotr Witek, Senior Specialist in Physicist at the Copernicus Science Centre here in Warsaw. Thank you once again for joining us.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you for watching World Talks. Please stay tuned to TVP World for more commentaries and continuous news.